Everyone feeling good? Everyone want to stand up for a second? Come on, stand up for a second. Stretch your legs, move your arms. I'm going to put you to sleep, so I want to wake you up first. Okay? Okay, now sit back down. Enough. So first, I want to correct something that Jason said earlier about every Empire employee sucks. He wanted me to correct that. He asked me to say this. He said every Empire employee before 2013 was great. Every Empire employee since 2013 suck. Right? That's what you meant to say? Thank you. So obviously, I'm Steve Silvers. I was the CEO at Empire today. For 16 years. And so I actually started there. My background's accounting and finance, so I'm an accounting and finance guy. I'm not a sales guy. I'm not a marketing guy, though I've learned all that stuff along the way over many, many years of doing this type of stuff. 25 years in total I've been in the home improvement industry. So outside of flooring, I've done painting, I've done windows, siding, roofing, solar, bath liners, and I'm back in flooring. So after about a 7-year hiatus of not being in the flooring industry, I'm back in it. I bring a passion for flooring. It's always been a passion of mine. I was unable to be in the flooring industry for 7 years, so interesting enough, the day after my non-compete ended, I was hired by Express Flooring, we're focusing on a similar strategy to Empire, which is to grow. I've been there for about a year, and it's been an amazing experience so far, and I'm really super excited about where the company's headed. So another thing I want to say real quick, Jason touched on a lot of interesting subjects, and frankly, this is the first time Jason and I have ever seen each other face to face. I think we've had one conversation over the phone, but interesting enough, we didn't coordinate any of the things we were going to talk about, but there's a common theme in a lot of the things that we talked about. Which should tell you guys something, right? These are two independent guys that help grow businesses and develop businesses, and you're going to hear some of the same things. And there's threads within these conversations we're going to have that are going to be very similar, which tells me something. It's surprising to me. I thought I was just coming up here to bullshit you guys, but I guess apparently what I'm actually going to say, Jason discovered some of these same things along his path to success as well. So to me, that's some validation there, and that should be some validation to you guys as well, that maybe there is a nugget, one or two little nuggets you can pick out of this conversation, our conversations today, and take it with you and be successful with those things. So my Empire Today story is kind of interesting. I started when it was a family-owned business. It was a $28 million small company, not small, but company in Chicago. That's the only place we operated. Founded and led by an entrepreneur who decided he started his business actually selling plastic covers for furniture. And when he was doing that, people started asking, well, can you do flooring? And it was all in the home. So next thing you know, he started selling flooring in the home, and he went into television advertising. And if anyone here is from Chicago, you grew up hearing the jingle, you grew up knowing that brand. I ended up, oh, wow, look at who's here. That's funny. So I went in there, and ultimately the owner of the company decided he wanted to sell the business. So he brought me in as the CFO, and history started there. We sold to private equity. We went from $28 million to about $700 million was kind of the peak when I was there. I went from CFO to Senior Vice President of Operations to CEO ultimately before I had left. And we had tremendous success. We grew nationally to the point where we were covering about 72% of the U.S. households. Since 2013 till today, they haven't grown that much. They're a little bit bigger than they were back then, but really not that much larger. They've changed their strategies a bit, but they're not much of a bigger company. Most of the growth that we achieved happened in about a 10-year period of time. So, when I talk about some of the stuff I learned along the way, 10 years, we went from $28 million in revenue with about 50 employees to $700 million in revenue, peaked out at about 1,500 employees. So tremendous growth, very rapid. And in that process, I learned a ton. I didn't come with a lot, but I learned a lot. And it was a great experience for me. So what did I learn along the way? So there's kind of 5 things that I've kind of bulleted here that I'm going to touch on a little bit. One, it all starts with working on your business versus in your business. And we're going to touch on these a little bit more. I kind of believe never be the smartest person at the table. So whether you're having meetings or conferences, I like to be the stupidest person at the table, which is pretty easy for me most of the time. So, but I really believe that if I'm the smartest one at the table, I'm not doing something right as an entrepreneur or leader as an organization. I believe in hiring strong. You know, Jason talked about hiring. I believe in measuring what matters. You know, if you're not measuring what you're doing, then you're destined to fail. You got to understand your business, and you got to understand the metrics that drive your business. And at the end of the day, it ends with culture. And actually, I think I learned some of that at Empire, and Brian Elias over here also taught me a lot about culture as well, and how important that was within an organization. So culture is hugely important if you're going to be successful. So I think I'm going to get, blank slide. So let me ask you guys a question. Who feels like all day, every day, all you're doing is putting out fires? Raise your hand. That's what you're doing most of your time is spent putting out fires. You lie. You're all lying, or you're not willing to admit to it, because that's the reality of what goes on most of the time, right? Most of the time we're putting out fires, which reminds me how difficult that is, right? If you're putting out fires every single day, you're not working on your business. So if all you're doing all day long is putting out fires or herding cats, you're really not working on your business. You're not growing your business. You're continuously just distracted. And it's really, you know, if any lesson came out of anything I did at Empire was to transform the way I managed a business from someone who was herding cats all day to someone who was working on developing and growing my business. And it's really simple. It's very comfortable sometimes to get back to sitting down at a desk and working on a spreadsheet, or to paying your bills, things you shouldn't be doing, paying your bills, collecting money, you know, answering phone calls, dealing with customer service issues that somebody else can deal with, dealing with conflict. You know, you could be spending all your time doing that stuff all day long, which a lot of people do. But if you really want to grow your business, you want to be successful, and I even heard it as Jason was talking, you get the vibe from him. You know, he's working on his business all the time. And that's really the game changer. We were at about $150 million, and we'd grown tremendously. And I was still the CFO of the organization, and I was pulling out my hair. I was doing the financials, doing budgeting, reading leases, doing all kinds of operational stuff. And I got to the point I was like literally ready to check myself into an institution. And I had a conversation with one of my mentors, and if you don't have a mentor, you should have one. I had a conversation with a mentor, and he said, what are you doing to yourself? You know, you're backed by private equity. You're going to grow this company from what was 28 million to, you know, hopefully $1 billion one day. And you're doing all this stuff, and you can't be focused on these day-to-day task stuff that you could delegate to someone who else can be doing it, and use your mind to think about how you're going to grow this company and what are the strategies you need to implement. And it was a game changer for me. It was the next day I put an ad in the paper. Back then there was papers for a CFO. You know, I hired tax people. I brought in a vice president of operations. I hired a real estate person, and my life changed. So I became someone who was doing all these things to building a team who did all that stuff for me, and then I managed that team, and I developed the strategy for the organization going forward, and that kind of stuff. And that was it. That was the major change, the button that got turned that changed everything for me, and ultimately helped accelerate the growth of Empire so that we achieved what we did in such a short period of time. So you got to make sure you are finding time and building time in your day to make sure that you can focus on driving your business versus working in your business. And it takes getting the right butts in the right seats on the bus. And if you don't have the right people, you're never going to get there. So when we talk about being the smartest person at the table, I'm a huge believer in that. Okay, I don't want to be the smartest person in the room. I don't want to be the smartest person at the table. There are many more people, much more talented than I. My job is to bring them together, make them work for me, and help them figure out, clear the path so they can help me grow my business. I want to be Steve Carell at every single meeting I go to, where I'm surrounded by much smarter people than me and helping me figure out how I'm going to take the company from point A to point B. That's what I achieve, and my goal is to achieve every single day. And that means finding the right people, right? You got to be able to find the right resources out there to help you achieve that, and you got to allow yourself. I mean, as entrepreneurs, we all come to the table with generally a big ego. I've met lots of entrepreneurs, big egos, and it's just part of it, including myself. But you have to know how to, and when to check that ego to allow other people to go ahead and help you grow your business. Bring the specialty to it. Bring the answers to you. That's the key to the entire experience. If you want to grow your business, surround yourself with people smarter than you. So Jason did a great job. He talked a little bit about our most important asset, right? Our most important assets as business owners is our people. We know that. That is absolutely it. If you're going to succeed, if that's my mom, tell her I'm in the middle of something. If it's my wife, tell her I'm not. So anyhow, so obviously the people is the most important asset you have. That is it. You're going to live and die by your people. That's a common theme and a thread between what I'm saying and even what Jason said earlier. So hiring and firing, there is nothing more important than that. And I put firing in that with hiring because to me it's one and the same. None of us are great at hiring. 100% of the time we don't hire great people. So you got to, hire slow. You've heard this before. We're going to talk about hire slow, fire fast. So I feel like I've sat through an interview and I sit there in 5 minutes in the interview, I'm like, how did this person even get to my office? That happens every once in a while, right? But the reality is huring is so important. And if you're not investing into your hiring process and you're not smart about who you hire, you're making a huge injustice to yourself, and it's going to stunt your ability to grow and to build the business you want to grow. I'm a huge believer in hire slow. I take my time. I go very slow. I want to make sure I have the right candidate. I do lots of group interviews. It's not just me, but I'll get 4 or 5 members of my team to interview people as well because I really want to go ahead and make sure and vet these people to make sure that they have the skill sets that I'm looking for, but also the emotional intelligence that I'm looking for. Someone who can fit into the culture, can speak, can listen, take direction, has the right energy, has someone I can help build passion with. So finding that person who has that emotional intelligence and that skill set, I don't care if it takes 4 months. I'm going to take my time to make sure I hire the right person. On the reverse, when I make a bad hire and it happens, I know I need to fire him quickly. You have to move fast because every single day that you don't, it sets you back a day from your ability to grow your business. It's costing you money. It's creating gray hair. It's causing you to lose hair. All this is because of the people I didn't fire fast enough. This whole look is because I didn't fire people fast enough, just so you know. That's the reality of it. So you got to be committed to it, and it's really, at the end of the day, there's really nothing more important. And if you really spend some time thinking about the people working for you, what I'm saying is I'm telling the truth. You got to get rid of people. The other thing is don't make excuses. There's lots of us who've had employees that have worked with us for 15, 20, 25 years. We're loyal to them. We love them. They've been there for a long time, and they helped me grow my business to where it is. But are they the right person to take me to the next level? You can talk yourself into an employee that's been with you all day long for as long as you want. But the reality is there are limitations. As great at managers as we are and motivators as we are, some people you can just take to a certain point. And if you can't take them any further, sometimes it's not you, it's them. And if that's the case, you're doing yourself an injustice. We all are loyal to people. We all expect people to be loyal back to us. But again, you guys are business owners. You're entrepreneurs. You're trying to grow something and develop something. And you can't let people hold you back. And you certainly can't let people that, they can take you from A to B, but they can't get you to C or D. And if that's the case, sometimes you have to have very tough conversations. And like I like to say is sometimes I just have to promote people to customers. That's what I do. I turn them into a customer. They can have a lifelong friends and family discount. That's okay, but we're just kind of moving on from you. So measure what matters. So there was no funny videos around key performance indicators. So there's nothing funny, no video for KPI, but it is important, right? Jason also, he mentioned a book called Traction, which is a phenomenal book. And if you haven't read it, you should read it. I know there's another guy in this building too, who's a super successful entrepreneur that also I know has read the book and he's using it in his business that he's developing right now day to day. It's a great book. I didn't mention it here. If you haven't read it, go buy it. It's really short, but it really puts everything into perspective on what you should be thinking and doing every single day. But a book that I also love is called Measure What Matters. And I'm a again, accountant finance guy, so metrics is kind of how I live my life. And it's all about understanding how to measure your business, right? And there's two different ways. There's two different indicators when it comes to measuring your business, right? There's leading indicators and lagging indicators. Does anyone know the difference between a leading indicator and a lagging indicator? Well, I'm going to tell you, so you're lucky. You came to the right place. So listen, the reality is, our business, there's so many different metrics we can measure, right? And there's things that drive business, and there's things that after the fact you measure how you did. But you need to be looking out your front windshield all the time, which means what's in front of you, what are you going to do to drive your business forward? So a leading indicator could be how many customers came into my showroom today, or this week, or this month. Are you measuring how many customers are coming in? Are you measuring your marketing spend? If I go ahead and I do a money mailer or any kind of mailing or postcards, are you putting a phone number on there to actually track those results? So you'd actually know how many people are calling you or how many people are bringing those coupons back in or showing inquiry. That's leading indicator. That's very upfront stuff. It's top of the funnel. It's at the very beginning of the process. That's really the most important metrics you need to be measuring. Because the lagging stuff is the backside. Do I have revenue? Did I sell stuff? Well, I didn't sell stuff unless I actually know that I generated leads on the front or I had people coming into the store. If I didn't do that leading stuff, then of course I'm not going to have the lagging stuff. But you need to be defining what your leading indicators are. Are you buying your material at the right price? Are you being competitive with your vendors and making sure that they're giving you the best price possible? That's a leading indicator because at the end of the day, it's going to impact your margins. That's a lagging indicator. Your profit margins are after the fact already. So there's a big difference between leading and lagging. We all generally spend too much time thinking about lagging indicators. We look at our financial statements, what was our revenue, what was our margins, what was my cost, what's my overhead cost, but we don't spend enough looking at the leading indicators. How many orders did this person process today? Okay, that affects my overhead at the end of the day. Do I have 2 or 3 people doing the same thing and one of them does it really well and does 50 of these things and the other 2 do 20 of these things? Well, why can't the other 2 doing 20 do 50? And I need those other 2 and combine them into one person that's doing 40 and a 50, and I save my overhead cost. But if I don't measure that stuff in the front, I have no idea how to relate that to the stuff in the back, which is ultimately your financial results and your profit and the money you're putting in your pocket. So you got to make sure you're understanding there is a difference between a leading indicator and a lagging indicator. And use that stuff to make decisions. Perfect example was I just gave. I got 2 people doing 20. I'm going to get rid of one of them. I'm going to save the cost. I'm going to have one person, I'm going to train him and hire him to do 40, or take one of those and have him do 40. I'm going to spend that payroll on marketing so I can drive more revenue. So leading, lagging indicators, understand it. This is a great book that talks about measuring what matters and understanding how to set goals, how to actually put metrics around goals, measure those goals, a limited number of items. It's really an interesting book. So if you're into this kind of stuff, I highly recommend you get it. So culture, again, Jason touched on culture. At the end of the day, it all ends with culture. So if you don't establish a great culture, if you don't spend time building a culture within your organization, you're going to fail. Or you're going to get gray and bald, and you're going to be working your ass off, and you're not going to see a lot of progress. Because culture is what drives everybody else in your organization. If you have a good culture, they want to come to work. They want to come and take care of your associates. They want to work for you. Culture is so important from a growth perspective. So I love Terry Tate, and if I could hire him, I would, because he obviously gets shit done. But But the reality is, who wants that kind of culture, right? Of constant threats and abuse and getting tackled and all that kind of stuff. But most employees don't appreciate that kind of behavior. But the reality is, if you create a great culture, that is the underlying pinnacle of everything I've talked about so far, right? It all relates back to building a culture and understanding what your expectations are. It's at the end of the day, it is all about culture. And at Express, we're working on our culture shift there. And, I kind of set my expectation. The way I deal with culture to some extent is setting expectations. What is it I expect my employees to do every single day? And I build a culture around that. And at Express, we've kind of settled on our culture is going to be settled around problem solvers. That's what we are at Express. We are all problem solvers. And all of our employees, all of my salespeople, all of our installers, we're all focused on one thing, is we solve problems. That's our job. Our job description every single day is just to solve problems, to go out there and whether it's a consumer or a problem for an installer or a problem for a sales rep, it's all the same thing. Our job and my job every single day is just to solve problems. It's just at different levels within the organization. But if you're doing that and your culture is I believe if your culture is based on that concept, we're problem solvers, well, that leads to a lot of great stuff, right? Great reputation online, a lot more leads, a lot more sales, a fun place to work, which is a novelty, right? Wouldn't that be great to have a fun place to go to work every single day? And that's something we're driving with our installers. We want our installers to know they can come work for us, and we're going to have a great culture and an environment for them. We want them to come to work and have fun, which for installers isn't always so easy, right? So that's the idea. Culture, if you're not spending time working on your business versus just in your business, you're not thinking about your culture. You got to be working on your business and thinking about the kind of culture you want to drive, because you won't grow without the right culture. And even at Empire, which our culture shifted and changed a lot over the years I was there, we were only successful because we hired talented people that were smart. We had a good culture that allowed them to go out and make decisions. We empowered them, and they were successful. So, last slide for me. I come to these kinds of things all the time, right? I listen to what other entrepreneurs have to say. I read books. I do all these kinds of things. There's one common thing that I've learned from all these experiences, which is, first of all, I really have very little control over anything. I don't have any control over my life, my kids, my family, at work. I don't have a lot of control. I think I've got a lot of control. But if you talk to anybody else in my life, they just kind of laugh at you and say, you're an idiot. You don't have any control. Just go over here, especially my kids. My kids won't even, they think I'm a moron. So, and they're probably right. But the reality is we have very little control. But the one thing we do have control over is the start. And what does that mean? You can decide right now, I'm going to take a few of the things that I learned today, and I'm going to go do it. Because if you never start, you'll never get anywhere. So the only real thing I think that you really can control in your life is the beginning. It's the decision to go and start. Once you start, other things get in the way. Other things they'll start to morph. They'll start to go on their own. But if you guys, as leaders, entrepreneurs, business owners, if you start it, it'll keep going. So that's my advice to you. And I don't, I'm hardly the right guy to be taking advice from, to be honest with you. But the reality is, if you just start. The rest of it takes care of itself, believe it or not. It really does. So thank you, guys. Any questions? Perfect. Was I the guy? I don't know. How do you want me to answer that question?
Did you hire the guy that came up with the idea of install one room and get the next room, buy one room, get one free?
Again, I'm not sure how to answer that question because I'm scared you're going to throw something at me. But that's cushioned, right? So that's good. All right, so give it back to him if you want to throw that. It was a collective idea, it was a collective. Everything I do, I don't take credit for anything. Everything I do it's collective. It's a group of people sitting around a table talking about ideas and thoughts and strategies, and let the best ideas win. So collectively as a group, yes, we came up with that idea. And whether you guys like it or not as retailers, I'll tell you from an Empire perspective, it was a huge win. we gobbled up a tremendous amount of market share from some of the people even in this room, from some of those concepts that you look at, you might look and say, that's the stupidest thing ever, but I can't argue with what works. And I'm not sure that's where you're going with that question, but just in case. So, any other questions? I'm that interesting.
Hi. I was wondering, the advice always comes across as always be hiring, always be interviewing. I don't have room for any more people in my showroom, and I have people applying, and some of them are good.
Well, when you say you don't have, yeah, I mean, the reality is there's always somebody better. There is always somebody better. I guarantee you, I don't know how many employees you have or how many salespeople you have, but you got to, stack rank them. Again, it gets back to the understanding the metrics and close rates and those kinds of things. But you got to rank them. And I always look at a sales organization like a baseball team, and there's probably many other people that do it the exact same way as I do, right? But you've got your 1, your 2, and your 3rd hitter that is knocking out of the park, and your 4th hitter that's hitting home runs. You got great salespeople. No matter what your sales organization is, there isn't one, it's impossible. Not one sales organization in any organization across the world, every single person's the best person. But we want the best person. We want more of the best person. So you got to rank them, and then there's always room to get rid of number 8 or 9. The reality is 8 or 9, no matter how much you work with them, you're never going to make them better. Almost never. I mean, I've done lots of analytics around these things, statistical analysis, and the chances of you taking a really bad performer on the sales side and making them great will never happen. You could take some in the middle and sometimes get them up, but if they're on the bottom of your scale, your best solution is just to get rid of them and find somebody better. You will never get them to be an A player. You might, it's like 1 out of 1,000, okay? And something dramatic happened in their life that caused it that you didn't even cause. So, thank you.
How important is software to measure and close in the house, being that you're from Empire?
How important is it? Well, so when I first started Empire, there was no technology, right? How important is software to closing in the house? What the impact is. So when I started, there was none, right? Everything was paper contracts. And even at Express, we've just recently went from paper to electronic. So, we're paperless there now too. It matters, because it creates credibility with the customer, for one thing. And it depends on how much you know about shop at home versus, brick and mortar. The sales process is different and that kind of stuff, depending on your business model. But it is important because people nowadays are used to technology. They want to see technology. And if you show up in their house and you're using technology, you build credibility with the customer. And credibility helps make sales, right? At the end of the day, they gotta know you, like you, and trust you. And if they don't have those things, if you haven't been able to build those items with people, you're gonna have a hard time. So it's important, but it's not the end all be all. Personality is just as important. So. What measure software do we choose? At Empire, we built our own. And at Express, we're using Measure Squared with Rollmaster.
Website.
FloorForce does my website. Woo! Yes. Cool. Any other questions, guys? Anybody? And I'm here. I'll be here. Don't forget to tip your waitresses. I'll be here all weekend.
This is a question.
Yes.
1, you made me laugh today. And 2, the most important thing that I've heard all day is that you said it's important to have a start. And without a start, there's nothing.
Yep. Good. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
I think we have time for one more question. Is there any other questions that we have?
They want to eat, so.
We have one more question here.
So you left flooring, and for 7 years you did something else, and you came back to flooring. So I'm just curious what you did in those 7 years that said...
What did I do? I moved to California, and I didn't work, so I enjoyed some time. I started a painting business, and that was, that's a whole nother shit show I could talk about for hours. And then I got into home improvement business, so I did window siding and roofing, and now I'm back into flooring. So, and along the way, did other kind of consulting things. I'm a CFO by background, so I've done some of that work along the way as well, and some recruiting stuff for CFOs. So I've dibbled and dabbled in different kinds of things, and somehow I got sucked back into flooring. You know, as they say, once it's in your blood, it's hard to get out. And that certainly happened to me. Though I'm going to finish this with one last comment, and then we're good to go. One thing to know about me, I'm not a flooring person. I'm back in the industry, but I'm a business guy. You guys, I'm telling you, every single one of you know more about flooring in your pinky than I know in my entire head. And I've been doing it for, in combined, 17 years now. I don't know anything. You know, that's carpet, I know that. These are kind of pretty colors. You know, I like color. That's kind of cool. It looks like marble, but I'm guessing it's not. I don't know anything about flooring, and I purposely don't care to. And I try and stay away from it, because building and growing a business is what I'm about. That's what I enjoy doing, and I'm not going to build and grow a business because of the products. I don't care what product it is at the end of the day. It makes no difference to me. So cool. Well, thank you guys so much. I really appreciate the time. Okay, thank you.